Today in the episode, longer than Nazi Germany's war against the Soviet Union, Putin's war against Ukraine has turned to a disaster for Russia. Ukraine delivers critical resources and proven technologies to the United States. Details of the deal. Security guarantees for Ukraine. What Kyiv and partners agreed on. Today is a grim milestone. 1,419 days of Russia's full-scale invasion in Ukraine. This is one day more than Nazi Germany's war against the Soviet Union lasted. Despite the Kremlin's relentless use of World War II myths to justify its current aggression, the reality on the ground tells a very different story. In that exact span of time, the Soviet army fought its way from the banks of the Volga River all the way to the heart of Berlin, a distance of over 2,200 kilometers, crossing half of Europe. Putin's military remains bogged down in the fields of the Donbas on the east of Ukraine. For almost 4 years, modern Russian forces have spent hundreds of thousands of lives struggling to advance just 45 kilometers toward the city of Pokrovsk in the Donbas. The math is devastating. An army that once marched across continents is now measuring its progress in meters, proving that while the Kremlin can recycle the propaganda of the past, it cannot replicate its results on the modern battlefield. Putin's losses are incredible. According to the latest update of General Staff of Armed Forces of Ukraine, Russia has left more than 1,200,000 soldiers, dead and wounded on the battlefield. And despite years of calculated preparation and a massive superiority in resources, Putin's military has failed to achieve its aims, to occupy Ukraine and destroy it as a state. What was once envisioned as a lightning-fast conquest has devolved into a grueling war of attrition. Russia enters 2026 as the world's most sanctioned nation, now facing more international restrictions than Iran, North Korea, and Syria taken together. With over 21,000 individual and sectoral restrictions, Kremlin's economy is under constant pressure from a coalition of the world's largest economies. Since 2022, full-scale invasion, the number of sanctions has surged by nearly 500%. From the freezing of $300 billion in sovereign assets to the systematic targeting of Russia's shadow fleet and liquefied natural gas projects. There are also asset freezes and travel bans on over 11,000 individuals, including oligarchs, top politicians, military officials, and propagandists. The international community continues to tighten the noose around the Kremlin's war chest. Analysts say the cumulative effect is now pushing Russia toward an era of long-term technological isolation. Ukraine has awarded the right to develop one of its largest state lithium deposits at the Donbas field to a consortium of investors linked to the United States. The decision, reported by the New York Times, was made by a Ukrainian government commission and is expected to be finalized by the Cabinet of Ministers. The Donbas deposit in Kirovad region holds one of Ukraine's most significant lithium reserves, a critical mineral used in electric vehicle batteries and other modern technologies. The agreement reflects deepening economic cooperation with U.S.-linked investors under a broader minerals investment framework, seen as part of Ukraine's efforts to attract strategic foreign capital and strengthen economic ties with American partners. Since early last year, Kyiv has promoted cooperation on critical minerals such as lithium, titanium, graphite, and rare earth elements, resources essential for U.S. industry, defense production, and clean energy. Beyond raw materials, Ukraine is also sharing battlefield-tested technologies, including maritime drones that have reshaped naval warfare in the Black Sea. Ukrainian officials say these systems are drawing interest from Western partners, including the United States, because they are effective, affordable, and already proven in combat. Kyiv says this cooperation is about building a long-term partnership that supports U.S. supply chains and security interests. At the same time, Russia is deliberately striking American investments and companies operating in Ukraine. Russian attacks have hit facilities owned or used by U.S. businesses, including an oil extraction plant belonging to the American agribusiness group Bung, as well as sites linked to companies such as Boeing and Flex. Russian strikes on Ukrainian ports have also damaged grain terminals in which the U.S.-based company Cargill held operational interests, disrupting exports and global supply chains. Ukrainian officials say these attacks show that Russia is not only targeting Ukraine, but also U.S. economic interests on the ground. European officials say Russia is deliberately escalating its attacks as Ukraine strengthens its role as a key economic and security partner of the United States and other Western countries. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said Russia's claimed use of the Oreshnik missile marks a clear escalation against Ukraine and is intended as a warning not only to Kyiv, but also to Europe and the United States.
Putin doesn't want peace. Russia's reply to diplomacy is more missiles and destruction. This deadly pattern of recurring major Russian strikes will repeat itself until we help Ukraine break it. Russia's reported use of an Oreshnik missile is a clear escalation against Ukraine and meant as a warning to Europe and to the US. Kaja Kallas, EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, on X.
Expanding air defense capabilities is essential to protect its people, infrastructure, and international investments as Russia continues its attacks. President Volodymyr Zelensky said air defense remained a central topic during his talks with U.S. and European leaders, including during his visit to Washington in December and recent meetings in France. He stressed that faster deliveries of air defense missiles would significantly strengthen Ukraine's ability to defend shared security interests and ensure stability for partners operating in the country.
I will not publicly say right now which systems urgently need missile supplies. As for systems from the United States, none have arrived. As for missiles, deliveries are coming in gradually, but we want them accelerated. We very much want this, and once again, ask the United States. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, during online press briefing.
European approval for an expanded U.S. role in Greenland, an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark, could become part of a broader deal regarding Ukraine, according to the American publication Politico. As Donald Trump is interested in Greenland's mineral wealth, the EU may agree to a strengthened American presence on the island in exchange for Washington's guaranteed support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Bloomberg sources report that Germany is set to propose a joint NATO mission to monitor and protect security interests in the Arctic region. Volodymyr Zelensky wants to personally discuss with Donald Trump specific U.S. commitments in the event of renewed Russian aggression. An additional guarantee of Kyiv's economic security, according to the Ukrainian head of state, could be a free trade agreement with the United States as part of a broader reconstruction package for Ukraine. Kyiv is also examining White House's proposal to create a free economic zone in Donbas. What does it mean? In the next story for you.
The plan proposed by the USA provides for the creation of a zone with a special legal and tax regime in the areas from which troops will be withdrawn, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told Bloomberg in an interview. This concerns part of the territories of eastern Donbas. The format is complex but fair, the head of state noted. This is one of the compromise options that requires both sides to withdraw troops from this territory to a sufficient distance. The alternative option envisages a cessation of hostilities when the parties remain in their positions and disputed issues are resolved diplomatically, Zelensky explained.
Ukraine will never recognize the occupied territories as Russian because it hopes to restore sovereignty over its entire territory in the future. I am not against Europe negotiating with Russia, especially now when the USA is exerting pressure and Europe has begun to speak about security guarantees. We are moving toward the final stage, even if we do not yet know what it will look like. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky noted that he expects to receive a response from Russia on the 20-point draft peace plan by the end of this month, even before the final agreement with the USA on security guarantees and the project for Ukraine's reconstruction. Volodymyr Zelensky reported that Kyiv has submitted its comments through U.S. special representatives. For now, Russia's actions indicate that it is not ready for genuine diplomacy, the president of Ukraine stated. As part of a broader reconstruction package, Kyiv is discussing with Washington the potential free trade agreement.
The deal would include zero tariffs on trade with the U.S. and apply to some industrialized parts of Ukraine, giving the country very serious cards compared with neighboring states and potentially luring investments and businesses. From a publication by Bloomberg, citing an interview with Volodymyr Zelensky.
The head of state intends to personally discuss all these issues with the leader of the White House. Volodymyr Zelensky expects a meeting with Donald Trump either in the USA or in Switzerland, where both presidents will participate in the World Economic Forum, which starts on the 19th of January. And this dialogue promises to be constructive. Donald Trump no longer has any illusions about Putin, analysts believe. He considers the Russian dictator an obstacle to peace in Ukraine, writes The Telegraph.
U.S. President's decision to seize an oil tanker under the Russian flag and support for the new sanctions bill were a signal to Putin that his time for ending the war is running out. A source from the close circle of the U.S. president noted he acts on the carrot and stick principle, and it seems to me he has run out of carrots, from a publication by The Telegraph.
Earlier, at a press conference in Mar-a-Lago dedicated to the U.S. operation in Venezuela, the White House chief stated, quote, "I am not delighted with Putin. He is killing too many people." At the same time, Donald Trump does not consider the use of a forceful scenario against Putin necessary.
I think it's going to be necessary. I'm very disappointed. I settled 8 wars. I thought this would be in the middle of the pack or maybe one of the easier ones. And the Russian economy is doing poorly. I think we're going to end up getting it settled. I wish we could have done it quicker.
On 9th January, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed in a phone conversation with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte the U.S. efforts aimed at diplomatic settlement of Russia's war against Ukraine. The State Department noted that Rubio and Rutte spoke about, quote, U.S. efforts aimed at diplomatic settlement of the war between Russia and Ukraine. However, the press service of the American agency provided no details of the talks, reported by Christina Dombrovska, UATV News.